The arrogance of the empire. To the Thalzar Empire, Earth was little more than a statistical anomaly, a resource-rich death world inhabited by primitive bipeds constantly at war with themselves. Their analysts labeled humanity as self-destructive but salvageable. A minor cleansing operation would pacify the surface. Standard conquest. Minimal resistance. They'd done this before, hundreds of times. Fleet Commander Vokran studied the rotating sphere through the viewport of his dreadnought, the Searing Will. One cycle, he said to his officers. No more than that. Begin orbital suppression. High above Earth's atmosphere, over a dozen Thalzar warships activated coordinated bombardments. Satellites burned. Communications died. Power grids in cities flickered and died in cascading waves. The sky darkened as fire rained down. On the ground, humanity watched their world unravel and didn't surrender. In New Delhi, backup generators roared to life in underground bunkers. In Colorado, mountain bases sealed their blast doors and activated hardened networks. In Nigeria, militias and military forces alike began relaying messages by drone and shortwave. The internet fragmented, but didn't die. Civilian networks morphed into resistance channels. Enemy troop movements were tracked in real time via hand-drawn maps and shared camera footage. To the Thalzar, Earth's lack of a unified command was a weakness. But they failed to understand. Earth didn't need unity to fight. It needed fury, and that came easily. The landings began at dawn. Thalzar dropships touched down in shattered cities and rural plains, expecting surrender. Instead, they faced silence. No parades of prisoners. No white flags. Just a stillness that felt wrong. By nightfall, the first patrols went missing. In a forest near Warsaw, human fighters ambushed an alien unit, using terrain and camouflage to their advantage. The aliens, reliant on energy weapons and line-of-sight targeting, were helpless when smoke and mirrors confused their senses. In Sao Paulo, a tank column was disabled by a group of teenagers using scavenged drones and homemade explosives. Commander Vokran received his first casualty report. Then a second. Then 5 more. They're not engaging us in open battle, his lieutenants complained. They vanish. Reappear. Strike and flee. They're disorganized, Vokran growled. They're just mammals. They don't even have proper planetary defense. But the numbers told a different story. Within 72 hours, losses had mounted, not from direct confrontation, but from attrition, sabotage, and sheer unpredictability. Entire units went missing in the Amazon. Convoys disappeared into mountain passes and never re-emerged. The humans weren't fighting by any known rules. There were no front lines, no treaties, no surrender. Just a world that refused to bow. For the first time in decades, the Thalzar felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. And far below their fleet, in the shadows of ruined cities and smoking forests, Earth began to sharpen its teeth. They thought we'd break. The Thalzar had come expecting a frightened species, eager to kneel before overwhelming power. What they found instead was a planet that refused to die quietly. In the ruins of Tokyo, a former subway system became the beating heart of a resistance cell. Engineers repurposed scavenged Thalzar drones into surveillance bots. High school coders cracked alien encryption keys, patching into enemy frequencies with shocking speed. A coordinated ambush on the invaders' landing zone left 5 transports smoking ruins before reinforcements could respond. The aliens didn't understand. They had destroyed the cities. They had silenced the skies. How were the humans still fighting? The answer was simple. Earth had spent centuries fighting itself. The skills were already there, learned in jungles, deserts, city streets. All it took was a common enemy. Across continents, 1,000 small wars turned into one big one. In Eastern Europe, retired soldiers organized civilians into ghost platoons, striking with lethal precision before melting into the landscape. In the American Midwest, farmers used old irrigation tunnels to sneak under alien camps. Home-built explosives made from fertilizer and scrap metal devastated Thalzar convoys. And always, there was the signal, short, sharp, and universal. We are not broken. We are still here. Commander Vokren's reports grew grim. The aliens were losing troops daily to what they called environmental anomalies. But these weren't random disasters, they were engineered. Avalanches triggered on purpose. Infrastructure collapsed with surgical timing. Power grids overloaded. Water systems tainted. In Lagos, Thalzar soldiers died from drinking what they believed was clean water. They didn't realize humans had turned the city's aquifers into chemical traps. Fear began to spread through the alien ranks. The humans weren't just surviving. They were learning fast. Captured weapons were reverse-engineered in underground labs. Thalzar tech was fused with human ingenuity, creating jury-rigged monstrosities that somehow worked. Plasma rifles mounted on pickup trucks. Signal jammers built from microwave ovens. Even their own dead were used. Fallen aliens stripped of gear. Their armor repurposed by humans for shock value and protection alike. To the Thalzar, this wasn't war. It was madness. And it was working. Desperate to restore control, Vokren ordered full-scale retaliation strikes. Cities that had already been flattened were bombed again. Villages suspected of aiding resistance were turned to ash. But with every attack, more humans joined the fight. Pain didn't make Earth surrender. It made Earth angry. In the shadows, a plan formed. Humanity wasn't just resisting anymore. It was preparing to strike back. And somewhere in the dark, a single message echoed again and again. They think we'll break. Let's show them how wrong they are. Earth fights back. It began with a whisper, we take the war to them. 4 weeks, humanity had been on the defensive, striking from shadows, fighting tooth and nail for every inch of soil. But something had shifted. The Thalzar weren't just vulnerable. They were predictable. Resistance cells began coordinating across continents. They had no central command, no single leader, just a shared purpose. Through encrypted radio, smuggled devices, even coded graffiti, the message spread. Now we strike. The first blow landed in orbit. A captured Thalzar skimmer, patched with human tech and piloted by an X-fighter pilot and 2 hackers, launched from a Siberian mountain range under cover of night. Its destination, the orbital supply barge feeding the alien war effort. They succeeded. The explosion was seen from Earth's surface. A burning line across the sky. The Thalzar panicked. How had humans breached their skies? Their systems? Their ships? The answer was simple. Humans learned fast. In South Africa, insurgents lured an alien patrol into an abandoned mine. The mine collapsed with surgical precision, cutting off the enemy's retreat, then flooding with gasoline. The explosion rocked the desert for miles. In Germany, resistance engineers activated a crude but devastating EMP pulse across a wide stretch of countryside. Thalzar walkers froze in place, powerless, as human strike teams swarmed in with captured weapons and unflinching resolve. Vokren raged aboard his flagship. This world is beneath us. How are they matching our strength? But strength was never the issue. Humanity didn't match power with power. It fought dirty, clever, relentless, and for the first time, united. Even rival nations stopped fighting each other. Old grudges were forgotten. Soldiers who once stared at each other over borders now fought side by side. A Chinese pilot flew cover for a Brazilian extraction team. A Russian satellite technician guided an American drone strike. This wasn't just resistance anymore. This was organized counterattack. Humanity had learned to jam Thalzar communications. They broadcast falsified orders, confused deployment routes. Some Thalzar troops walked into ambushes believing they were returning to base. Others found their own air support firing on them, their ships hijacked by human control. It wasn't just military. Civilians played their part. Grandmothers smuggled explosives in fruit carts. Children mapped troop positions with stolen tablets. Entire villages vanished into forests, only to reappear behind enemy lines days later with blooded uniforms and stolen gear. And through it all, Earth's fury grew sharper. A final operation loomed, codenamed Blackout Dawn. Using hacked alien tech, humans would hijack one of the orbiting warships, not just to destroy it, but to use it as a message, not just to the Thalzar, but to the entire galaxy. Earth would not be conquered. The galaxy watches Earth rise. The The blackout dawn operation began with silence. Above Earth, the Thalzar flagship steering wheel hovered, unaware that its systems had been compromised days before. Human hackers, working from a buried lab beneath the Swiss Alps, had wormed their way through layers of alien encryption, piggybacking on stolen code, tricking protocols, mapping the digital nerves of the beast. At precisely 0400 UTC, the human signal activated. Within seconds, the steering wheel shut down. Lights flickered. Engines stalled. Internal security turned on itself. Doors locked at random. Gravity spun out of control. And before the crew could respond, a second signal lit up its communications bay. A broadcast. From Earth. It was not a declaration of surrender. It was a message to the galaxy. Across Thalzar systems, into every known outpost and listening post beyond, the signal spread, a live feed of the flagship burning in Earth's orbit. A human voice spoke, calm, clear, resolute. We did not ask for war, but we do not run from it. We are not prey. We are not weak. We are not yours. The feed shifted, flashes of resistance, of civilians fighting, of alien troops in retreat. Then the Earth came into view, still scarred and smoking, yet unbroken. To those who watched in silence, remember this. You let them come. You thought we would fall. The final image, the searing wheel, now plummeting from orbit, engulfed in flames. Then, silence again. Commander Vokren never made it to the escape pod. His ship became a funeral pyre, one Earth had sent back to the stars. Across the planet, cheers erupted, from bunkers, forests, rooftops. Not because the war was over, but because the tide had turned. The Thalzar retreated. Not in formation, not with pride. They fled. Supply chains collapsed. Orbital dominance gone. Ground forces overwhelmed. For every ship that lifted off, 3 more were brought down by human-engineered weapons. Some Thalzar units surrendered outright, begging for mercy from the species they had tried to enslave. Humanity granted it, but never forgot. Months later, the final dropship was dragged from a crater in Mongolia. The last alien prisoner removed his helmet and looked at the humans surrounding him. Not with hatred, but with awe. "You were not what we expected," he whispered. "No," a soldier replied. "We never are." The galaxy watched in stunned silence as Earth emerged, battered, blooded, but victorious. But it was not the victory that terrified them most. It was how fast humanity adapted, how fiercely it united, how thoroughly it fought, and above all, how it learned. The invasion had failed, but something greater had been set in motion. Earth had seen the stars, been touched by fire. It would not be content to stay grounded. The next time ships left Earth's atmosphere, they wouldn't come in peace. They'd come prepared. Now, across the galaxy, one truth was whispered in fear. Never provoke the death world. Never provoke Earth.